Hello and welcome to this repair tutorial, and today we're going to look at an Arcam, and this is the Alpha 3. In terms of general specifications, power output is 40 watts per channel into 2 times 8 ohms at 1 kHz. Frequency response is 20 Hz to 20 kHz at 0.5% total harmonic distortion. And then for your inputs, it can accept directly a moving magnet type cartridge from a turntable. It's 2.5 millivolts at 47 kiloohms impedance. And then for your CD, tuner, tape and video input, it's 170 millivolts. You have a tape output on the rear, which is 150 millivolts, with an impedance up to 2 k ohms. And then for your headphone for private listening, 10 volts RMS at 600 ohms. And the range in terms of impedance for your headphones can go from 8 up to 2 kiloohms. You can also bypass the tone control circuits from the direct mode button on the front, and it has independent bass, treble and balance controls. And then dimensions, height, width and depth, 84mm by 430mm by 248, and the weight of the amplifier is 4 kilograms. Now, when we look here from the front, you can see that it's quite a clean layout, and I do like working on these Arcam series amplifiers. They are very reliable, but you get one or two problems which we'll sort of go through as part of this tutorial, and I'll also, of course, in a moment explain to you what the issue was when it came into the workshop. So in the center there, you can see the two large electrolytic capacitors. And then on the heat sinks left and right, where they're bolted to it, are the audio output transistors. You can also see the emitter resistors, which are mounted up from the board. And then on the right-hand side, you see the toroidal transformer. There's also a protection fuse, again, which we'll come back to. What's always a nice feature with these amplifiers is you can also see that there's like a plastic carrier. And what that is used for is just to store a replacement fuse, and that fuse is used as the fuse protection for each of the outputs. And then here, when we look from the rear of the amplifier, you can see that we have the individual user controls, so the potentiometers. You can also make out the input selection switch on the right hand side, and then the direct mode and tape switch as well. And then here we're just focusing on the phono input stage. So this is the phono equalizer stroke preamplifier. Uses a single operational amplifier. And there's no switching involved here, so you don't select between a line input or a phono input. It's dedicated. So what was the issue when this amplifier came into the workshop? Well, the fault with the unit was that it was blowing the mains protection fuse. And if we look at this photograph, and I've sort of zoomed in, just on the right hand side, you can kind of just make it out. There is a fuse carrier, and that is on the primary side of the toroidal transformer, and the rating for that fuse is time delay 800 milliamps. And every time you powered up the amplifier, then that fuse would blow. And that normally indicates that the amplifier is drawing excessive current, and that can be for a number of reasons. There could be maybe an issue with the primary of the transformer, or there may be an issue on the secondary side of the transformer. What you do is you go based on experience and go test the components which have the highest probability of being short circuit. So here what I'm focusing on is the right hand channel, and these are the two audio output transistors. So there's a TIP3055 and there's also the PNP, which again is a TIP, but then it's 2955. And we'll sort of go into what type of replacements you would fit a little bit later on. So here, when you put the multimeter just onto resistance mode, what you found was that both of those transistors were short circuit and required to be replaced. Now, what also is worth mentioning is that depending on how an amplifier fails, because of the excess current draw, you often find then that the emitter resistors here, which you can see the green resistors mounted up, are very low value. So these are 0.22 ohms. So as the excess current flows through the resistors, then the resistors overheat and then they go high in resistance or open circuit. And then what you may also find is that the smaller transistors, which are in the driver stage of the amplifier, may also fail. So the guideline here is don't just replace the output transistors and then power up the amplifier. I've put a link in the description for the video, which also gives details of a dim ball tester. And when you work on any piece of equipment like this, you should always have the dim ball tester in series during the repair and test phase. The idea is the filament bulb will light if excess current is drawn, and for a very, very limited amount of money you can make one of these, and it is something that you will use extensively. Now, When you look at the output transistors which are fitted, what you have to source are genuine originals, and I have them in stock. You also need to ensure that they are matched, and what I mean by that is that they are coming from the same manufacturer. Now, when I referred to the output transistors had failed, in this case when I did additional measurements, there was no other components which I could find were defective. So I've replaced the output transistors, and then here what I need to do, again based on experience, that failure of those output transistors may be related to some of the solder connections on the board. So there's a high probability here, because a lot of these solder connections were cracked, that was the reason why the output transistors failed. On this photograph, you can see the entirety of the board, and what I would always advise you to do is to simply work your way around the circuit board, resoldering all of the different areas which I've highlighted. So you're just going to, here from the rear, work from left all the way around. I'm doing the phono RCA input sockets first of all, because there's always mechanical stress and you will also find cracking. And then I'm also verifying the speaker terminal solder connections, also the output transistors, and then on the right hand side I'm also checking as well the Euro input socket for the mains power. As I'm scanning across the board, also for the right channel and the left channel, again as I mentioned, you're going to find dry solder joints, and then also in the phono stage. When you move towards the front of the amplifier, you'll also find dry solder joints around the user controls and then also the switches, so you need to take care of those. When you look here as well at the far left hand corner, those solder connections there are for the input selection switch, and we know from experience that intermittent sound loss can be associated with oxidized contacts on the switch. So here what I've done is I've removed the front fascia and it just unclips, and then what I'm focusing there on is to remove the locking nut, and then here this is showing you a close-up view, and this is your input selection switch. Now what you don't have to do is to remove the entire metal fascia. What you can see is that that hole is slotted, so once I've desoldered it from the board I can just raise it up and then just remove it. And then here what you're seeing is that input selection switch taken apart. And there is always a lot of oxidization, but you'll also find original lubricating grease which dries hard. And this is where you get this issue with intermittent loss of sound, because as you are selecting the different inputs, sometimes it will make a contact and sometimes it won't, and that can affect both the left and the right hand channel. What I would say as well is once you've done all of that work and you've reassembled the switch, just ensure also that you spray directly De-Oxit into the user controls, and you need to rotate them backwards and forwards multiple times. So we're talking about the bass, treble and balance controls, also the volume control potentiometer, and then also here the tape and direct switches, and just operate them, as I say, multiple times just to ensure that you have noise-free operation. You'll also need to spray into the headphone socket as well, because over time you'll get oxidized contacts, and the way in which you would then clean the internal contact is once you spray the De-Oxit in, just plug in and out the headphone jack plug multiple times and then rotate it slightly backwards and forwards, and you'll find that there will be no sort of static or crackling noise when you make the connection. So once the amplifier output transistors were replaced and rebolted onto the heatsink, and then the front fascia put back in place, the next thing that we have to do is to do the adjustment of the amplifier. So here you can see this is from the service manual, and the service manual is available to download, and it covers the different Arcam series. And what you'll find is that there is a different bias measurement value that you need to attain depending on the model number that you're working on. So here for the Arcam 3, what you see here is that I need to adjust, in this case RV1, which is for the left channel, until I'm reading approximately 9 millivolts across the two emitter resistors. Sometimes you might see that they just refer to the bias value being 4.5 millivolts. All that means is that the measurement has been taken across the single emitter resistor. So you're going to leave the amplifier running for about 20 minutes just to warm through, and then there's going to be no speakers connected, and your user controls at midpoint except for the volume control with no audio signal applied. Put your multimeter across the emitter resistors, and then you can then make the adjustment. Because it's a single term preset, you may want to clean that, because again over time you can find oxidization forms and dirt forms on the carbon track. And then here as we step through, you can see this is for the original failed channel, so the right hand channel, And you can see I'm connected across the two emitter resistors, and I've just adjusted it now until I'm just slightly above 9 millivolts. Now it is a little bit twitchy. As I say, it's a single term preset, so just make the adjustment, just wait, and then you'll find that it will then start to stabilize, and then you can make a final adjustment if you need to. And then here on the other channel, we're just slightly above, so 9.09. And again, once I've done the adjustment, I leave the amplifier running, come back 15-20 minutes later, and then I'll then recheck and make any final adjustment. So here you see the failed output transistors. So you have the one on the left hand side, which is the TIP3055, which is the MPN. And then on the right hand side, TIP again, 2955. And then the only thing that remains then is just to put the amplifier onto test. So you can see here from the top, all of the work has now been completed. The amplifier also had a thorough clean as well. I wouldn't say that it's come from a dirty environment. This is probably one of those rare occasions that you find an amplifier of this age, and it was in outstanding condition, really immaculate. And then once the amplifier is put on test, it's left running for about 3 to 4 hours. And then what I'm doing here is I'm just checking the audio quality of the amplifier. And then I also select all of the different inputs and then verify that the moving magnet type cartridge is working correctly. And also from a user controls point of view, there's no static or noise. So that sort of brings us to the end of this repair tutorial. And as always, I really appreciate you stopping by. And if you need any help, guidance or assistance, by all means email audioamplifierservicing@aol.com and I'll be more than happy to come back and provide any support that you require. So until the next time, I wish you all the very best. Cheers and bye-bye.